How are you guys doing? Today is January 1st, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a profile on one of the best pitchers in the league, Dallas Keuchel, who is currently the starting pitcher for the Chicago White Sox and the current ace for one of the best teams in the American League. And for this episode, I'm just going to go through his entire career just to kind of explain and give my justification as for why I consider him an elite pitcher that I'm going to keep a close eye on for this upcoming MLB season. So if you're unfamiliar with Dallas Keuchel, he is today he just turned 33. He's currently playing for the Chicago White Sox. He originally attended the University of Arkansas, where after his junior year, he was taken in the 7th round of the 2009 MLB draft by the Astros. He officially signed with the team, and he wasn't officially brought up until 2012. And in 2012, his rookie season, he would start 16 games and finish 3-8 in a season where the Houston Astros would finish 6th in the NL Central with a 55-107 record. Just not the best season, of course, for the Astros, and that's how long Dallas Keuchel's been on the team. That season, his age 24 season, he would finish with a 5.27 ERA with his 3-8 record, and then in his 85 innings, he would allow 93 hits, and he would strike out only 38 batters. But of course, his career would get better. In 2013, the first season in which he would start over 20 games in the league. He would finish with a 6-10 record in the season where the Astros finished with the worst record that they've had since then, with a 51-111. Yeah, the worst record in the league. And then eventually they got better and built themselves up. But this was the worst. This is probably the lowest point of the Astros franchise at this point. And this was, I believe, this is their first season in the American League. So just to give you a little bit of context, in this season he would finish with a 6-10 record, finishing with a 5.15 ERA over 153 innings, where he would allow 184 hits and strike out only 123 batters. But of course, he was kind of building himself into one of the best starters in the league. This was the second year in the league, but his next season, it would get a lot better for him and, of course, the team. Dallas Keuchel, in his 2014 season, he would start 29 games, the most games he started in a season up until this point. He would finish with a 12-9 record, his best record to that date. He finished with a 2.93 ERA, his best ERA to that date. He finished leading the American League in complete games as he threw 5 of them. He would pitch 200 innings, allowing only 187 hits. The first time he allowed less hits than innings than pitched innings, and he would strike out 146 batters en route to getting his first Gold Glove of his career. In this season, though, the Houston Astros would finish 4th in the AL West with 70 wins, 92 losses, and this was the season also Jose Altuve won the Silver Slugger. But of course, the Astros were building themselves up, and Dallas Keuchel, I think, was one of the first pieces to help the Astros kind of get there. So 2015, I believe, was his best. It was probably his best season to date. Just to get started, he would start 33 games, the most seasons he's ever started, in a season where the Houston Astros would finish 2nd in the AL West. They would make it to the playoffs. They would lose to they would beat the Yankees in the AL wild card, but they would lose to the Royals in the ALDS the year that the Royals went to the World Series and won it. This is also the year that Carlos Correa won the Rookie of the Year. But of course, looking back out to how well Dallas Keuchel played in this season, he would finish with a 20-8 record with a 2.48 ERA. This is the first and only time he's won 20 games in his career in a season. He also threw a 2.48 ERA. He completed 3 games, and he led the American League with two shutouts. He would pitch the most innings in the American League. He would pitch 232 innings, which is the most he's pitched in his career. He would only allow 185 hits in those 232 innings. The second time he has pitched more innings than allowed hits. And then he also struck out 200 batters for the first and only time in his career. He would go on to win the Cy Young Award. He was named an All-Star for the first time in his career. He was 5th in MVP voting, and he would win his 2nd consecutive Gold Glove for the Houston Astros as they made it to the playoffs for their first time as a team since 2005, which is a very big accomplishment for this franchise. Continue, and this was probably Dallas Keuchel's best season to date, but of course, it gets kind of better. So in 2016, following his Cy Young season, Dallas Keuchel would start 26 games in a season where the Astros would finish third in the AL West with an 84-78 record. Jose Altuve was named a Silver Slugger for the third year in a row. He was the only other big all-star on that team, but of course Dallas Keuchel was kind of pushing it. But of course in 2016 he would finish with a 9-12 record, his first losing record in the last 3 years. He would finish with a 4.55 ERA. His numbers would jump back up to what they were usually, and then in 168 innings, he would allow 168 hits. He'd have exactly as many hits as innings pitched, and then he would strike out 144 batters en route to his third straight Gold Glove in the American League. So, of course, he was, keeping an amazing streak going through there. Jumping into 2017, which is the most recent, he would start 23 games in a season where the Houston Astros would finish with the best record in the American League West. They would beat the Reds. They would go to the playoffs. They would beat the Red Sox in the ALDS. They would beat the Yankees in the ALCS, and then once they added Justin Verlander halfway through the season, they would beat because I remember they added Verlander halfway through the season, and then they would beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series in 2017. It came out later that they all cheated, but they're still gonna let the Astros keep that championship because the MLB gave them immunity. But that's a whole something else to get into in another time. But in his en route to getting a championship, he would make his second career All-Star game as he finished with a 14-5 record. This is the second time in his career he had 14 wins. The third time in his career he had double-digit wins. He finished with a 2.90 ERA. The third time in his career he finished with a sub-3 ERA. He would pitch 145 innings, only allow 116 hits, and strike out 125 batters in the season. And of course, he would, and like I said, in 2017, he would make his most recent All-Star game to date. But of course, he's still been doing pretty well. And up until that point, and past that point, he was a World Series champ for the rest of his life. Going into his 2018 season, he would start 34 games, leading the American League in a season where the Astros would finish first. They would finish with the best record in the American League yet again. They would sweep the Indians in the first round, and then they would lose to the Red Sox in 5 in the ALCS. That was his final year in Houston. He would finish with a 12-11 record with a 3.74 ERA, pitching 204 innings. The third time in his career he pitched 200 innings in a season. He allowed 211 hits, which is the most hits allowed in the American League. And then he also struck out 153 batters in that time. But this time he went on to win his fourth Gold Glove in 5 seasons, because he didn't win it in 2017 when they won the World Series. But of course he did this time. And that is his most recent Gold Glove to date. And then following his last year in 2018, he would get moved to Atlanta for the season. And then he would get picked up later in the season, but he would start 19 games in a season where the Atlanta Braves finished with a 97-65 record, the best or the most wins they'd had in a season since 2003 when they were kind of going through their dynasty phase. But of course, they would make it to the playoffs, and then they would lose to the Cardinals in the NLDS 3-2. But of course, Dallas Keuchel that season, he would finish with an 8-8 record in the National League, his only season in the National League since his rookie season, his first year in the National League since his rookie season in Houston. He would pitch a 3.75 ERA, pitching 112 innings, allowing 115 hits in those 112 innings, but he would also strike out 91 batters in those innings. He would put up a pretty good season, pretty solid season in Atlanta. And after that one season in Atlanta, he would go to Chicago, where he currently is now, where he pitches for the White Sox, back to the American League. And in this current season in 2020, he might have had his best pitching season to date. He would start 11 games in a season where the Chicago White Sox would finish with a 35-25 record. They'd finish third in the American League Central, but they would finish with the first wild card spot. They would make the playoffs in the first ever extended MLB playoffs during the shortened season due to COVID. And in this season, he would finish with a 6-2 record. He would be the best pitcher on the Chicago White Sox. He would finish with a 1.99 ERA. This is the first time in his career he'd finished with a sub-2 ERA, and the fourth time in his career he finished with a sub-3 ERA. He would pitch 63 innings. He would allow 52 hits in those 63 innings and strike out 42 batters as he finished fifth in Cy Young voting. And then this season, they would go to the wild card and they would lose in the first round to the Athletics 2-1. In a season where Jose Abreu won the MVP and the Chicago White Sox are starting to rear their heads as definitely a team to be worried about in the American League. He also led the American League in fewest home runs allowed per 9 innings as he allowed .284. He would only allow 2 home runs all season in 63 innings, which is an incredible feat considering what he's done. And if you look at Dallas Keuchel right now, where he's currently situated, if you look right now where he is Friday, January 1st, 2020. He is the best pitcher on arguably one of the best teams in the American League. He's not going to give you a lot of strikeouts because he's a contact hitter. He's a hitter that pitches into a lot of ground outs, but a lot of times when he pitches the ball does not make it out of the ballpark. He's a very good longevity pitcher. He will pitch long innings in. He doesn't throw a lot of strikeouts because he tries to force hits, and by doing so he doesn't throw that many pitches and he can last a lot of innings. And if you look at what he's been doing right now, where he currently stands, he is a 2-time All-Star, and he more than likely would have been a 3-time All-Star had they had the All-Star game this season. He is a World Series champion as it currently stands with the 2017 championship in Houston. He won the Cy Young 2 years before they even won the World Series. The first year they made the playoffs, so Dallas Keuchel was a big part of that. And he's a 4-time Gold Glove Award winner. From 2014 to 2018, he won 4 of those 5, only missing it in 2017 where he made a second All-Star appearance. He was the American League wins leader in 2015. In this most recent season, he had a sub-2 ERA. So going into 2020, I think Dallas Keuchel is most definitely a player to keep your eye on as the White Sox White Sox make their push for the American League Central title. And considering there's not, I think he's the only real ace and the only elite pitcher that I have on the Chicago White Sox. He's going to be a big reason why the Chicago White Sox perform well if they do. And if they don't perform as well, I don't think you can really pin it on Dallas Keuchel. But Dallas Keuchel, you just have to see what happens going into this season. And once again, I want to end this off by saying it's a happy 33rd birthday to Dallas Keuchel. And going into 2021, I really am going to watch as much Dallas Keuchel as I can. And with that said, I want to appreciate everyone who listened to all 12 and a half minutes of this piece. Once again, it is Friday, January 1st. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do a profile on Fernando Tatis Jr., the 21-year-old shortstop out of San Diego Padres, as he turns 22 tomorrow. But with that said, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to this piece. I'll catch you tomorrow with tomorrow's basketball and with the Fernando Tatis profile. And once again, thanks for listening to my piece. Peace out. I'll catch you tomorrow.